Dr. Wendy Osefo, professor, political commentator, reality TV star, immigrant success story, mother of three, Johns Hopkins alumna with 4 degrees, celebrated Democrat, who interviewed the White House press secretary. The woman who built her entire brand on education, empowerment, and excellence just got arrested for allegedly staging a burglary at her Maryland mansion and trying to scam insurance companies out of nearly $500,000. Let that sink in. A woman who literally made 4 degrees, her catchphrase on national television, who lectured her castmates about class and intellect, who positioned herself as the educated voice of reason on the Real Housewives of Potomac, is now facing 16 felony fraud charges because investigators say she and her husband Eddie faked a break-in, claimed $450,000 worth of designer bags and jewelry were stolen, and then got caught when deputies found the supposedly stolen items in their house. This isn't just another reality TV scandal. This is a masterclass in how the pressure to maintain an image of success can turn intelligent people into alleged criminals, and the details are absolutely wild. April 7th, 2024, deputies respond to the Osefos' Finksburg home for a reported burglary. Wendy and Eddie say they just got back from vacation in Jamaica. They walk into their home and discover they've been robbed, bedroom ransacked, closets torn apart, and according to them, thieves made off with designer handbags, luxury jewelry, clothing, shoes, all told, over $450,000 worth of high-end merchandise gone. The story they told seemed plausible at first. Wealthy reality TV couple, beautiful home. They're public figures. Of course they'd be targets for burglars, except deputies started noticing things that didn't add up. First red flag. The supposed point of entry was a second-floor bathroom window, but there was no evidence anyone had been on the roof to reach that window. No footprints, no disturbances, nothing. Second red flag. The Osefos have an activated home alarm system, the kind that detects motion, and that system never registered anyone moving inside the house while they were away. So either these were the world's most skilled cat burglars who could defeat modern security systems and leave no physical trace, or nobody broke in at all. But investigators kept digging, and that's when things got really interesting. Deputies discovered that roughly $20,000 worth of the items the Osefos claimed were stolen had been returned to stores for refunds before the alleged burglary even happened. Think about that. You can't steal something that's already been returned for cash. That's not how theft works, unless the theft never happened. Then there's the jewelry. Wendy reported that her gold diamond anniversary band was among the stolen items. Even had Eddie update the insurance claim days after filing to specifically add that ring to the list. Except detectives found social media posts of Wendy wearing that exact ring after the burglary supposedly took place. She was literally posting pictures of herself with the allegedly stolen jewelry on her finger. And here's where it goes from suspicious to absolutely damning. Deputies obtained a search warrant for the Osefos' email records, and what they found is genuinely shocking. On April 12, 2024, just 5 days after reporting the burglary, Eddie sent an email to Wendy with a list of the supposedly stolen items. And in that email, he asked, and I'm not making this up, additional high-value items we can add to this inventory listing. I'm trying to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum. Let me repeat that in writing. In an email that prosecutors now have, Eddie Osefo allegedly asked his wife what other expensive items they could claim were stolen to max out their insurance policy. That's not the behavior of burglary victims. That's the behavior of people allegedly committing insurance fraud. The investigation revealed something else. The Osefos were burdened by substantial debt. Prosecutors used those exact words, substantial debt. So here you have a couple living this glamorous life on reality TV, designer everything, luxury vacations, projecting wealth and success. But behind the scenes, they're apparently drowning financially. And when deputies executed a search warrant at the Osefo home after arresting them on Thursday, they found at least 15 items that appeared to be the same items claimed as stolen. The supposedly stolen merchandise was right there, in their house, where it had always been. Now, Wendy and Eddie were indicted by a grand jury. Wendy faces 16 charges, 7 counts of insurance fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and 1 count of making a false statement to a police officer. Eddie faces 18 charges, same crimes plus a couple extra counts. They each posted $50,000 bond and were released Friday. Their spokesperson put out a statement saying they're home. They're in good spirits. They're grateful for the support. They look forward to their day in court. Standard crisis PR stuff. But the evidence prosecutors have laid out is pretty overwhelming. Let's talk about the irony here, because it's almost poetic. Wendy Osefo built her entire Real Housewives persona on being the intellectual, the educated one, the professor who's above the petty drama. She joined the show in season 5 back in 2020. And from day one, her thing was, I have 4 degrees. She said it constantly, made it her identity, used her education as both shield and sword in arguments with her castmates. She was an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins School of Education. She won multiple awards from Hopkins. She was the inaugural director of a master's program at Goucher College. She appeared on news programs as a political commentator. She interviewed Karine Jean-Pierre at the White House for her YouTube show. She posed for photos with Kamala Harris. She was the immigrant success story, came to America from Nigeria at age 3 and achieved the American dream. And now she's facing felony fraud charges for allegedly faking a burglary to scam insurance companies. It's the kind of fall from grace that reality TV producers couldn't script if they tried. Except this isn't scripted. This is real life with real consequences. The timing is also darkly comedic. Just this week, Wendy did an interview where she talked about her Real Housewives castmate Karen Huger, who recently finished serving 6 months in jail for DUI. Wendy said everyone deserves a platform to tell their own story, that there's no point in your story being told by others. Well, now Wendy's going to have to tell her own story, in court, under oath, and the story prosecutors are telling is pretty damning. Here's what makes this particularly fascinating from a cultural perspective. Reality TV has created this arms race of lifestyle inflation. These shows aren't about real life anymore. They're about projecting an image of wealth, luxury, and success. And once you're on that treadmill, once you've established that image, the pressure to maintain it becomes crushing. You can't show up to filming in last season's handbag. You can't wear the same dress twice. You can't admit you're struggling financially because that destroys the fantasy. So people take on debt. They lease instead of buy. They rent designer clothes. They do whatever it takes to keep up appearances, and sometimes, allegedly, they commit fraud. The tragedy here, if the allegations are true, is that Wendy Osefo didn't need to do this. She had real accomplishments, real credentials, a real career, but somewhere along the way, being a professor and political commentator wasn't enough. She needed the designer bags, the luxury lifestyle, the image of wealth that reality TV demands. And when maintaining that image became financially unsustainable, instead of scaling back or being honest about her situation, she and her husband allegedly decided to commit insurance fraud. Think about the calculation that had to happen here. You're an educated woman. You've got multiple degrees. You understand consequences. You know fraud is illegal, but you're so desperate to maintain this lifestyle, so buried in debt, so committed to the image, that you convince yourself staging a burglary and filing false insurance claims is the answer. It's not a moment of passion. It's premeditated. You have to plan it, coordinate stories, file claims with 3 separate insurance companies, update those claims to maximize the payout. And the email, that email from Eddie asking what else they can add to hit their policy maximum. That's not a mistake. That's not a misunderstanding. That's allegedly fraud in writing, sent 5 days after filing the police report, meaning they had nearly a week to think about what they were doing, and they kept going. The insurance companies involved aren't mom and pop operations. They have investigators. They have resources. They've seen every scam imaginable. And the Osefos allegedly thought they could outsmart them. Or maybe they were so desperate they didn't care. Maybe they figured they'd deal with the consequences later. Maybe they thought their public profile would protect them. But here's the thing about insurance fraud. It's taken seriously, really seriously, because if you let people get away with faking claims, the whole system collapses, premiums go up for everyone, companies lose money. It's not a victimless crime, even though people often think of it that way. And the law enforcement response shows how seriously Maryland takes this. Grand jury indictment, multiple felony counts, $50,000 bond each, prosecutors laying out the evidence in detail. This isn't a slap on the wrist situation. If convicted, Wendy and Eddie could face serious prison time. The Real Housewives franchise has had its share of legal troubles over the years. Teresa Giudice went to federal prison for fraud. Jen Shah got 78 months for running a telemarketing scheme that targeted elderly victims. Erica Jane's husband is accused of embezzling millions from plane crash victims. But somehow it's always shocking when it happens again, because you'd think people would learn. But reality TV seems to attract or create a certain type of behavior. The cameras reward excess, drama, over-the-top lifestyle. And once you're in that world, once you've tasted that fame and attention, going back to normal life feels impossible. So people make increasingly bad decisions to stay relevant, to maintain the illusion, to keep the cameras rolling. Wendy's case is particularly sad because she actually had substance. She wasn't just a reality TV personality. She was an academic, an author, a respected voice in political commentary. She could have built a career outside of Housewives, but instead, allegedly, she chose to commit fraud to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford. And now everything she built, the reputation, the credibility, and dollar bond, facing 16 felony charges, and waiting for her day in court, the American dream turned into an American crime story. All because the pressure to appear wealthy became more important than the reality of being honest.